And hello again to all of our friends out in the social media world who happen to be following us here at Parent Twain Connection. I'm Clarissa Constantine, the founder, and I am super excited for our conversation here with Dr. Elizabeth Rosner. Hi, Dr. Roz.
Hi, beautiful one. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here, truly.
You are one of my favorite human beings on the face of the planet because you always show up with such love and gratitude in your heart. And given that February, one of our themes is relationships and communication, and you are on a mission, as you have said to me, to help 8 billion people learn to love 8 billion people. I knew that I had to bring you back, and we had to talk about this. If any of you tuning in think that Dr. Roz looks familiar, she should be. She's been with me at least once or twice already over the years, and we're back talking about the love revolution. So first things first, Dr. Roz, give us a little bit of your background and how it came to be that love is like your middle name.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As I said, I am truly, truly delighted. I'm so honored every time you ask me. And, I'm like, oh, I hope it works out. And, I know you've got a lot of people that you highlight and on. So being a returning guest is quite the honor. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. A lot of people have been asking me this, and I love this question because I don't know. I know Clarissa will probably remember. Some of your audience will remember Shrinky Dinks. Do y'all remember Shrinky Dinks? Mm-hmm. And it was, like a big piece of plastic, and you would write whatever on it or draw on it or whatever. And then they would put it in a heat source and shrink it down. And so I did mine at summer camp when I was 5 years old. And this is what this Shrinky Dink says. God is love. Love is God. To Mom and Dad and Catherine from Elizabeth. Catherine is my sister who's 15 months younger than me. So I knew at 5 years old the power of love. I knew that there was something about this whole love thing and this whole God thing that I needed to really tap in, and it was going to really be a banner over my life. So I did this. I came home from camp at 5, gave it to my mom. She put it on her bureau, and it was on her bureau every single day. She saw it every single day. And about 6 months ago, my mom is still with me, so love you, sugar. About 6 months ago, I was at her house, and I was saying, at some point, one of the things that will be most impactful for me, most powerful for me to have that's in your home now that I'd like to have in my home is that Shrinky Dink. And she said, Sugar doll, you just go on up there and get it and you can just enjoy it. And I said, thank you. So I have it right here at my desk every day, and I see it every day as a reminder. Because what happened, Clarissa, is at 5, that was my lived experience. Love is God and God is love. And then the world crept in, and then there are things in my story that are honestly quite tragic. There's some things that are triggering for folks to listen to that, there would need to be a trigger warning before I tell several of my stories. Then God also gave me a really good brain. And so intellect kicked in, and intellect was like, well, love is stupid because it's all emotional and it's all, and I was raised in an area that it was very much, just at a time in history where it was you're in or you're out. So whether that was by skin tone or by neighborhood or, even, I live in Georgia, so you don't have to care about the other 49 states, or you have a faith tradition, so you don't need to care about any other faith tradition, or you have a faith tradition and this is your denomination and your denomination is the best denomination and everybody else, they get it wrong. And so it just was like this constant disconnect within me that I wasn't getting it. I didn't understand it. And it's because I wasn't supposed to get it. I was not meant to be put in a box and put others in a box. I was meant to have this vision of 8 billion people loving 8 billion people, which is a really massive vision. And it's probably overwhelming to a lot of people. And so I've been adding one heart at a time. That's how we're going to do it.
And I love that mission. And I know that you and I both believe that starts at home. The phrase that I've used is world peace starts at home. And so when you sent me some ideas about this conversation, I knew that having this conversation was going to be really, really important. And if we add one heart to it, then that's another heart, right? That's 7,999,000,000, however many left, right? So we're talking in this first portion that's going out to all the places on the interwebs about love being or leading with love, particularly in the home. And these concepts apply in other arenas, certainly, but obviously at Parent Tween Connection, we're focused on the home dynamic, the family dynamic, the interpersonal play between parents and teens and tweens. And
Yes.
I know one of the things that you say is that love isn't just love. Love is an acronym. What is that acronym, Dr. Roz?
So there are two different ways that love shows up in terms of an acronym. One is letting others voluntarily evolve. And I didn't come up with that. That's an album cover. That's a song. There are a lot of people that use that acronym that way. So it is meeting people right where they are and saying,
Mm-hmm.
I love you. I see you. You have a heartbeat. You have dignity. And I know that at 54 that I have certainly evolved, which
Mm-hmm.
means every single person has the opportunity and perhaps the desire to evolve, which means everybody gets to have the grace to evolve on their schedule. And
Mm-hmm.
so that happens in the home, it happens in the workplace, it happens in communities. How can we meet people exactly where they are? And this love that I'm talking about, it's not emotional, it's not mamby-pamby, it is cognitive, it is very much a choice, and it
Mm-hmm.
is that agape unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a faith tradition, and I will often say that and I love this so much because I wasn't also not the first person to say this, but I believe this. I say this every day. I will never look into the eyes of someone that my higher power does not love.
Mm.
For me, because of my personal faith tradition, I also believe that my higher power loves all 8 billion people every much as he loves me, which
Mm-hmm.
means it's not like, oh, well, you believe in me, so I'm going to like put you up the ladder. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. You have a heartbeat, you have value, you have dignity. And so when it comes to letting others voluntarily evolve, it is really letting some of those things play out. It's especially difficult for parents
Mm-hmm.
because we're charged with molding and shaping and figuring out the parameters. And so some of that
Mm-hmm.
is really difficult. And many of us, myself included, I mean, I had my son at 29 and I still wasn't, where as I said, I'm 54 now. I am today years old thinking, I wish I had done this differently or this differently or different,
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had known more about myself when I had Alexander.
Well, and it strikes me then that another variation of that is letting ourselves
Voluntarily evolve.
thank you, voluntarily evolve. I lost it. So it's letting others, but also letting ourselves and recognizing that we've
Exactly.
not been in this situation where we are right here ever
That's
before.
right. That's right.
So then what's the other interpretation of the acronym?
So it is when you are in a situation, I'm asking you to, for both yourself and for others. So listening,
Mm-hmm.
L is
Mm-hmm.
listening to yourself and others, and then observing like what's going on, what's happening with yourself and
Mm-hmm.
others,
Mm-hmm.
then validating with yourself and others, and then
Mm-hmm.
empowering. Now, some people may say, okay, well, that seems a little judgy. And I'm not asking for the judgmentalness. I'm saying really hear what they're saying, really listen
Mm-hmm.
to the words, observe when they're like, everything's fine, and there are tears coming out their eyes. So you've heard
Mm-hmm.
everything's fine, but you're observing and you're like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's the validating, like, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of young people in my life that really reach out to me, and that's one of the gifts that I'm able to give them is I see you, and right where you are is exactly where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly where you're supposed to be. And I say young people because that's the focus of this conversation. But I have 70-year-olds
Mm-hmm.
that and I have people in my life, Clarissa, that also say, Elizabeth, you're right where you're supposed to be. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you and I can have a conversation offline about the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. And I
Mm-hmm.
can say, I'm not where I want to be with, being able to share with you where I am with that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's where I am. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do that. So,
Absolutely. So talk to me then specifically in the environment where we're talking parents and teenagers or step parents and teenagers or whatever variation of, grandparents, aunts and uncles and whatnot, and teenagers. Talk to me about leading with love, specifically with these young people when it's in our family dynamic, because sometimes it feels harder to listen to them. It feels harder to validate them and empower them. Surprising though that may be, I hear this from a lot of families.
Oh, I mean, it's 1000%. It is so hard. So hard, because the world today is so different than anything that we grew up in. And so, there's that proverb that says you can't step in the same river twice. And so it doesn't matter that you were once 10 years old or 14 years old or 18 years old. You're not today years old and 18 years old. And so your 18-year-old experience is quite different than their 18-year-old experience, or whatever the age is. I love to use the grit blueprint in all my coaching and all the things that I do. I have this one grit blueprint for listening, and the G is give an ear. You just want me to listen. Or the R is respond. The I is intervene, and the T is all three. I need you, honey. It is all hands on deck. It is a fire going on. So what happens is when you have somebody that, let's say 9, 10, 11, like whenever it is that you're really starting to help them, come into their own in terms of their independence, they come to you with a problem, and you can start using this blueprint and say to them, are you asking me just to listen, or are you asking me to respond? Because even that is so powerful and so empowering for them to say, I just need a sounding board. I need to figure out, and they may say, yeah, I'm asking you to respond. And then they don't agree with what you said. That's okay too. And so, one of the conversations that I often talk about this is my son did study abroad many, many years ago, and he lost his passport. And he called me and he said, I've lost my passport. Honey, I went right into respond. I was just about to intervene. I mean, we were almost at T level. And I began to, he goes, Mom. I said, what? He said, I've handled it. I'm just calling to let you know what happened and how I handled it. And it's all good. He was just asking me to G. And I would just, for that, I was like, let's go into intervene mode. The same has happened in other ways though, too, is, he might call, somebody might call and say, blah, 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 blah. And I'll go, no, I need some feedback here. I really want to know what you think. And so then that you have an opportunity to really say, oh, this is what's going on, or whatever. But it's having these healthy, love-centered, safe havens. One of the things that I love in terms of leading with love is leading with love ambassadors cultivate safe havens. Cultivate these spaces so that we can reach one heart at a time. And your home should be the safest space for all of you. And let me tell you, Clarissa, people say, well, I don't talk about politics. We just don't go there. For me, and this is something that I've heard my mentor say 1,000 times, politics are policies. And when I am focused on, I don't like this politician, and so I'm going to badmouth this politician, then I've created almost a power struggle. I say, with dignity, this politician enacted a policy that has this consequence. Then I've invited the person that I'm talking with not to have a head-to-head debate with me, but we're going to talk about this policy. Now, the thing is, Clarissa, my own life, perhaps, and the people that are watching, many people are quite eager to invite me and others to a debate. And a debate is I win and you lose. There has to be a winner and there has to be a loser, and somebody's going to go down. And I will RSVP, no thank you, every single time.
Absolutely.
You invite me to a discussion, I am right there. I don't care if there are 900 points and I disagree with where you stand on 899.5 of them. I will have a discussion, but because a discussion means I'm going to share some things and you're going to share some things. And we're going to see each dignity, and we're going to understand that quite possibly, most probably, we have a lot more in common than we do different. It's having that discussion. And really, in terms of nonviolence, how we talk about you don't perpetrate violence towards someone before you have dehumanized them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the best way to not be able to dehumanize them is to be face to face, to be having these
Mm-hmm.
conversations.
And
And
to
so,
recognize their inherent dignity, as you indicated.
right, every single one of us, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there were some things that I believed at one time that I don't believe anymore. There were some
Mm-hmm.
things that were, cultural, or, maybe some things from my faith tradition, or maybe some, things from my past, from my ancestry,
Mm-hmm.
that are part of my narrative and my story that
Mm-hmm.
are no longer serving me. Because I've
And
volunteered.
that falls into one of the foundations of connection as we have it here at Parent Twin Connection, is challenging your truths and recognizing that, hey, what I used to think and what I think now, or maybe what I have thought for so long, isn't mutually exclusive from what somebody else thinks. And I like your distinction between a discussion and a debate. And again, I think that can happen at home, right?
Yes.
And start those conversations to be like, hey, let's have a discussion about these things. And
Mhm.
some might say it's an agree to disagree philosophy, and perhaps you agree, but it's also a case of like, let's set the parameters within which we can have these conversations and learn from each other and be willing to change our perspectives.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, talking about parameters, one of the things I used to do with my son is when he was in middle school, at the end of his 6th grade year, I married Mr. and we moved about 30 minutes away. And so we had a 30-minute commute. So I would drive him up to school for 30 minutes and then I would drive back home, and then drive back up 30 minutes to get him and have 30 minutes on the way home. So one of the things that I realized was I've got an hour every single day with my beautiful son. And
Mm-hmm.
so if there were conversations that needed to happen, I intentionally didn't have them happen in the home. I
Mm-hmm.
had them in the car. And because we knew those roads so well, and he knew the roads as well as I knew the roads, I would intentionally start some kind of perhaps contentious conversation or something that I thought might not go as well, about 5 minutes before or 10 minutes before we were to arrive somewhere, particularly to arrive to school, because he knew without having to say it out loud, okay, she's going to bring this up, but I only have to talk to this woman about it for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could have a 10-minute conversation. Now that I'm talking to parents about college, there are some parents that, honey, I mean, we are talking about college at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What did you do for your application? Blah, 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 blah. And
Mm-hmm.
I have said to parents, y'all get a Google Calendar or something and say, this week, here are the slots that we're talking about college.
Mm-hmm.
Means here are all these other slots that we are not talking about at all. And both need to agree on that, because there are times that we want to talk about it, and there are times it used to be like I loved school, I loved education, I loved talking about school, I loved talking about my grades, I loved talking, but you know what? All of that was a very positive experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know one student right now that is just la la la, I've got a 4.0 and everything's fabulous. I know a ton of kids that have a 4.0 and it is not fabulous. I know a
Mm-hmm.
ton of kids that do not have a 4.0 and it is not fabulous.
And it is
Like,
very not fabulous.
so struggling, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
This whole grade inflation and, I mean, what, like, y'all can see my UGA stuff behind me. I mean, UGA's admission criteria is how many APs and what GPA is their average, their median.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane that we think that average for freshman GPA is 4.0 or 4.02
Right.
or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that ties into another point that you wanted to discuss. There's so many different kinds of intelligence, right? And so a lot of what you're talking about is like the book smarts, right? And the ways that we're tested in school on our academic capacity. And one of the things that we've been hearing a lot about in our world, working with teens and tweens in the last 5 to 7 years, is social emotional intelligence and social emotional learning. How do we bring that into the home? Because if it's not even a term that's been around for us in our professional careers for the last 20 years, it may or may not be something that parents are familiar with. So how do we broach that?
For me, I don't have like a little acronym for that, or I just I say meet every child right where they are. Really try to, as much as possible, suspend all expectations for what
Mhm.
you have for that child and really learn who that child is. Because any mother will tell you, well, like I only had one biological child. I have like 15 more that call me mama. And so only having one, I had nobody to necessarily compare him to.
Mhm.
Um, and I had expectations that I was putting on him that, were probably unfair or, not warranted. And I tried really hard to really meet him where he was. But I mean, I failed miserably. I know.
Mhm.
For parents that have more than one child in the home, honey, you got the same set of parents and the same culture and the same food and the same, water, all,
Mhm.
like those things. And I mean, we're going to be vastly, vastly, vastly different.
Mhm.
So, you can see it with twins. I
Mhm.
have a nephew that are twins, and, they're the things that they want to do are different. Their friends are different, all those things. And some of it is this whole societal thing of how can I distinguish myself?
Mhm.
I stand out and also blend in, which
Right.
is, as an entrepreneur, I'm told you got to be on social media and do all the things to stand out and also blend in. So it's not like they're the only ones
Mhm.
receiving this message,
Not
but
at all.
for me, zero of my dignity or worth or self-value has anything to do with, likes or clicks or hits or
Mhm.
views, whatever the things are.
Absolutely.
But presumably, we don't know this for sure, Clarissa, because I've not had any kind of lobotomy or anything. But presumably, my frontal lobe is fully developed at 54.
Uh-huh.
But we have all these beautiful children that are walking around, and their frontal lobe is not fully developed. And
Sure.
so, asking people, one of my favorite expressions is, "You don't go to the hardware store for bread."
Right.
So asking, excuse me, some of these students, some of your children, to have the emotional bandwidth, it's like going to the hardware store for bread. Like it's
Mhm. They're
that's
not there yet.
they're not there yet. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Absolutely. So you gave us some good insight, Dr. Roz, on how you approached things with your son, with the driving, using that time, timing it appropriately so that we know we don't have to have this conversation for an eternity, right?
Right,
What are
right.
some other strategies, like some actionable tactical approaches that some parents can take to increase their listening, observing, validating, and empowering approach to life with their kids?
I love that question. I would say really, really, really get out of your head. Get out
Mhm.
of your expectations. Really try to set aside your lens as much as possible. And really, from an unconditional, observational, and objective view, start watching them. Where are they?
Mhm.
What does that mean? What does that look like?
Mhm.
I because I only had one, and I remember when I met Mike, and somebody, that's Mister, and somebody had asked me, did I think that we were going to have children, or we were dating or something, and he was in the front seat and I was in the back seat. Honey, his neck went all the way back. Like, what is she gonna say? And I said, I feel like I'm meant to be mom to a whole bunch of people, but I think that I'm going to have just the one biological. So I kind of had this view that I was really curious about folks. But
Mhm.
sometimes we're all overwhelmed and it's just a lot of chaos, and it's just a lot of, the thing is, toxicity, hatred, divisiveness, all of that is, I mean, they're daggers. They're
Mhm.
people. And so when you're leading with that, or this is, so much a part of your culture or your home or whatever, it's leaving marks, and it's
Mhm.
it's sowing chaos. And so when you decide to be a collaborator with your child at whatever age that is,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
like the other day, I was at a shopping center, and it was before the store opened, but I was standing outside because, of course, I want to be first in line. And so it was, maybe I don't know, 45, 50 degrees here in Atlanta. And there was this little kid and he was running. And, the mom was watching him and the mom was like, hey, do you want to put on your coat? And he goes, no, thank you. And she goes, your body, your choices. I looked at that mom and I was like, Mama, yes. How, and I say 3, maybe the child was 2. I don't know how, but that child was young. And here mother saying, your body, your choices. Yes. We can collaborate because the 3 C's of leading with love are you commit to leading with love, and then you get curious, and then you collaborate. So one of my favorite sayings or kind of visualizations. I don't know how many of your listeners listen to Josh Pate, but he is a college football podcaster. He talks about all the teams, and I love Josh Pate. And he's also from Georgia, so of course I love him. And he talks about like if you have a plate and you put a little drop of water and then you put a little drop of honey, which one is going to be sweeter, the water or the honey?
I mean, you'd think the honey straight away.
The honey, right? Okay, most people would say the honey's sweeter. So then you take that plate with a little bit of water and a little bit of honey and you turn it upside down. Which one's going to run off the plate quicker?
The water.
The water, which means the sweeter response is to respond at the speed of honey. So just get really curious. Just like suspend what you want to say, not be super eager to respond. Just really, really, really listen. If somebody says, awesome. How was your day? How was the food? Excellent. Good. Talk to me about this lunchroom hot dog. Now, do they put it on a bun? Do you have any condiments with it? Did you have potato chips? Oh, you like the relish? Oh, you don't like the relish. Okay, well, like you can have a conversation about anything that is validating and empowering to the people you're talking to.
I love that. All right, we're going to wrap up this portion of our conversation with the final question that I remember to ask most of our guests. Okay. And that is to go back to the foundations of connection. For those who aren't familiar with the foundations of connection, they do form the foundation of everything that we do here at Parent Tween Connection. And I'll verbalize them for anybody who's just tuning in audibly. Create a safe place. That's the first C. Then we have observe, non-judgment, nod and smile, explore, challenge your truths or curiosity, take your time, innovate, own your own story, and nurture. And Dr. Roz, I am curious which one of those, I mean, we've talked about several of them already today, but which one or 2 or 5 that pops up and kind of like says, hey, me in your brain today?
You know what is really popping up is the last one in for nurture.
Nurture.
How can we make our homes the most loving, love-centered, love-filled place? Because you step outside that door, honey, and I mean, the world is a little bit on fire for everybody. And there are people for whom the world is tragically on fire. And there are people that even if, their safety is not in question and they have housing and they have a good meal and they've got a good brain and they've, they're still struggling, with all the things. And, schools are struggling now to, monitor behavior. Like, it's not appropriate to hug people anymore. And then it's appropriate to hug same sex, but not opposite sex. But then now, there's just like a million different ways. And so this nurture, this really, really, one of the things, and this actually, you know what, I'm going to save the remainder of what I was going to say for the next segment, not because I don't want the live to hear it, but because it's a more involved concept and we don't have time to get into that. But it's the nurture, being committed to every single person as much as possible, feeling loved in your home and extending love in your home. So it's not enough that the mom says, well, it's one more thing I got to do is create a loving environment. It's every single soul in that home. It's your responsibility to extend love to everyone else in that environment.
And that is the perfect segue, Dr. Roz. Thank you so much. For those of you who are are members of Parent Tween Village, you can pop over and join us in the workshop we're about to have. It's going to be about 20 minutes or so, where we are going to dive deeper into how to bring those 3 C's within the love construct into our homes more and more intentionally. And if you're not yet a member of Parent Tween Village, you can learn more at parenttweenconnection.com/Parent Tween Village. And Dr. Roz, if anyone wants to follow up with you and learn more about your programs and the Love Revolution, where do they find you?
My website is drroz.love, and you can just go there and learn all the things.
Love it. I love the .love. All right, friends, we are over and out here on the worldwide interwebs. We will catch you in Parent Tween Village. Thanks so much, Dr. Roz, for being with me.
Thank you, Clarissa. I love you. I love your audience. Thanks for having me.
Love you too, my friend.